You're listening to The Pivot Point, where we unpack the defining moments that shift careers and lives. I'm your host, Laura Dionisio, founder of Lead Intact, and my mission is to spotlight the raw, real stories behind career pivots, the fears, the hopes, the messy middles, and the bold decisions that follow. If you're feeling stuck or quietly wondering what's next, I hope these stories help you see yourself a little more clearly and inspire you to start moving toward your own dream life. Let's begin. Welcome to the Pivot Point podcast. I'm your host, Laura Dionisio, and today I have a guest, the wonderful Faith Vavra. I've known Faith for like 10 years now. We've worked together in a volunteering capacity for at least 7 of those years, something like that. And I feel like I just learned something about her reading this bio. Faith Vavra is currently the Federal Relations Director for Binghamton University. She holds a Master of Public Administration from Troy University, a Master of Criminal Justice from the University of South Carolina, and is currently enrolled in the PhD Community Research and Action Program at Binghamton University. Faith has held leadership positions in public and nonprofit agencies across the country. She previously held positions as the Chief of Staff for the City of Ithaca, the Deputy District Director for the House of Representatives in New York's 22nd District, Broome County Executive Office for County Executive Jason Garner, and was an adjunct instructor at SUNY Broome and Binghamton University. Faith has been on the cutting edge of research solving community problems in the fields of criminal justice and government. Like, total badass, and I'm not even done yet. She currently serves on the Ross Park Zoo Board of Directors, the Red Cross of the Southern Tier Executive Board, the Junior League of Binghamton Board of Directors, and is the advisor of Alpha Phi National Sorority at Cornell University. You're doing like 10,000 things at once, which is not surprising. Faith was awarded the Junior League Watchers Bowl in 2020, the Eleanor LaRouche, is that how you say that?
LaRouche.
Stainer Award 2024, and the Woman of Achievement by the Broome County Status of Women Council in 2020 for creating relationships and bringing people together for a better community. Give it up for Faith. By the way, for funsies, because I've been really obsessed with ChatGPT, I ran your bio through it and asked it to re-say it, but in my tone. Do you want to hear it?
Really?
Yeah,
I want to hear it.
Laura's hype translation. You just heard the official bio, but now let me give you my version. Faith Vavra is not just accomplished, she's legendary level impactful. She's held major leadership roles across the country, advised actual members of Congress, led cities, taught at universities, and somehow also has time to serve on more boards than most people have group chats. But here's what I want you to know. Back when we were working with the Junior League of Binghamton to help build Copernic Science Park, we were $64,000 short. It was one of those we might not make it moments. And then in walks Faith, calm, cool, and collected, and casually secures the full $64,000. Like she's just picking up a coffee because that's who she is. She doesn't just talk about community change, she does it. She is it. She brings people together, builds bridges where others see walls, and gets shit done. So yes, Faith is brilliant and strategic and qualified out the wazoo, but most of all, she's heart-led and absolutely unstoppable, and I am beyond thrilled to have her here today as my first guest. So let's get into it.
Yeah.
Give it up for the one, the only Faith freaking Vavra.
Yeah. Almost a tear in my eye right there. Like it's interesting to hear it played back at you. You know, like what you've done. Crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what's crazy is like I didn't know your full bio, but because we worked together for at least 5 years in Junior League of Binghamton, I knew. I was like, oh, I'm going to start a podcast talking about career pivots. Faith. Hands down.
Yeah.
And we also back then, like almost 10 years ago, we're like, what if we created a podcast and called it Have a Little Faith?
I know. We've talked about this for years.
And
Fun.
And here we are.
Here we are.
So yeah, out of like your many amazing career pivots, which pivot would you say that people would really learn from and get inspired by?
I don't think there's just one pivot.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there is several pivots that could have broke me.
Ooh.
I used to call them failures.
Mm-hmm.
They're not. And that is part of the legacy I hope I leave. whether it's in the junior league or whether it's for my sorority sisters. Like, I think that my legacy should be, on paper, I should have failed a million times. And because of the connections that I made, I was given the opportunity to succeed. And that, I think, is the ultimate pivot. When you can pivot knowing that you have all these things behind you that can help you do that.
What about the person who hasn't done a pivot yet? I feel like it's especially hard when you've been at one place doing the same thing for like 20 years. What would you say to them?
I think you get comfortable where you are.
Mm-hmm.
I had a very comfortable job, very predictable retirement, working for the state, doing exactly what I should have been doing. I was checking all the boxes, and I was just not satisfied with it. And I think many people feel that same way. And so when you look at your life and you say, I just don't know. And what sparked the pivot, which was a big chance, was, going to Congress.
Oh.
Like, was my guy going to win? I mean, there were so many risks that were taken in that. And I think I am a firm believer, as you already know, that the bigger the risk, the better the reward. And people have said that for years, and I thought they were crazy. I always had followed the rule. I got married. I had a child. I finished my master's degree. I finished 2 master's degrees. Get there. And then all of a sudden you get divorced, your life blows up and you don't know what to do. And I think that making the safe choice is responsible. But is it what is in your heart and in your soul to do? Because if you follow your heart, I really believe that you will be so much happier, whether it's a job, whatever career path you always wanted to do. I mean, and I'm sure we'll get into this, but I never thought I would be a small business owner. I own my own business now. I don't simply work there either, but I was like, I need extra income. What can I do to make extra income to make me have a more comfortable life? But going back, the pivot that I made to take on this job in Congress was a 2-year commitment. I knew going in that I was going to make a little bit more money, but I was leaving the safety of this very predictable everyday job that I probably on paper should have stayed at because I was a single mom. And then I decided that I was going to do this, and nobody had gone before me. Like, I knew none of my friends, as single parents they all thought I was crazy that you would take this 2-year job. But I jumped.
So take us through that moment. Like, if we were kind of like, we pause in that moment and almost like zoom into what was happening in your mind and in your heart, because you were at a safe job. And so, like, what was the process when you were finally like, yeah, I'm going to do this? Because you also mentioned that now you believe the bigger the risk, the bigger the reward. But at the time, I'm guessing you didn't.
No way. I would have never. I think previously I would have said that I was crazy if somebody would have told me what I was about to do. But in my heart, I knew that I wanted to be a player in the game. I knew that I wanted to be able to go through my life and have some kind of legacy to leave my child. And all of the volunteering and everything that I did, I thought, I know a lot of people. I could be a congressional rep. First of all, they had to pick you. So it wasn't like I was a shoo-in, like they came to me and asked me to work for them. That's not what happens. That's what happens now. But it never really happened like that before.
So you were the one who looked into it. You had to convince yourself that, yes, I'm going to follow my heart, because none of your friends had done this before. You'd never been in this space before. And then you had to convince other people to take a chance on you.
And the chance was, and as crazy as the story as this sounds, I met this person at the St. Patrick's Day parade that happens here in Binghamton and said, if you win, I'm going to come work for you. They were a different political party than I was. They did not necessarily want me. I don't think. I had an interview at a local restaurant with this person, and by some fluke, they said, well, next we're going to meet the mayor. And I said, oh, he's my neighbor. And all of a sudden they realized maybe I knew more. This single mom, all she did was raise her kid and work in the county executive's office, like hidden away. And I worked on great projects at the county executive's office. Let's not downplay that. And I did make connections, but it was, I think being the front-facing person was never really part of my personality. Believe it or not, right?
Yeah, that's hard for me to believe.
And you've never known another me,
no.
right? And so that's what makes it crazy is that I always wanted to be the workhorse, not the show pony. Like, I need to do this work. So taking that risk ended up really formulating who I then have become in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
And in my faith in myself. And, people that go through a divorce and they're working. And I think that we forget about that population of people. I tell this story because I think it's important for people to know, because when they see me today, I remind people I lived in a dumpy apartment. My child and I were scared at night. It was in a heavy drug district of Binghamton, and I was scared and I had to play it off. There were times that I had to feed my son and not myself. Here's a girl that had 2 master's degrees and was not marketable in this community because I either was overly qualified or I didn't have any real work experience in the positions that were around here. Probably that biggest pivot was the first pivot to just take that risk.
Yeah.
And to really branch out.
Yeah. You know what I'm really, really curious about? And wow, Faith, that's incredible. I didn't realize all of this was happening at the same time. Divorce, single parent, and then you made the jump. I'm just picturing someone listening and being like, okay, but I really am scared because maybe they're single parent also, and they also have a secure job. What really finally pushed you to be like, no, I have to do this?
I think that we forget that our children watch us.
Oh.
And they react how we react. My parents had the same jobs for 30 years. Very stable, never made a ton of money. Never wanted to, really. They had a good retirement and they both retired 55. So they thought that's what I was supposed to do. And while I respect and love them in every way, I always thought, gosh, why did we live in the same house? Why did we do that? So you start to question as an adult what legacy you want to leave for your own child.
Ooh.
And I think that my legacy at that point where I said, if I don't take this risk, this is my legacy. I'm going to work here. I'm going to do great things. But I'm going to miss out on what I truly want to do, which is work with government and create change and be the change maker sometimes and really help not only my child, but our community. And really try to be that catalyst to do that. And I think that you can almost put that into any career field. As a single parent, you will be discriminated against, always discriminated against. And I use the word discriminated for a reason, because the minute I have to leave early to pick up my child or I have to do whatever, all of a sudden there's all this hate that comes at you. And I strategically said, before I took that job, my child comes first. And I think if somebody's listening, I think to get that right out of the gate, don't take a job that doesn't respect the fact that you are a single parent and you have to be there.
And for context, how many years ago was this? Like, for context for the people listening.
Oh gosh, 12 years ago.
Okay, so I bring this up because these days there's a little bit more conversation and like understanding and leniency. And so I want to bring that context in to show that Faith was doing this before this was even an okay discussion to have, so to speak.
My craziest pivot was having a child.
Yes. Yeah.
I never would have thought I would have had one, but
Oh,
I,
really?
yeah. And so I think that I was super work driven, super ready to be the queen of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, my most important job, people say it all the time, your most important job is raising your child. My most important job was to make sure that I was the person that I wanted my child most to be like. I
Oh,
wanted to be my
wow.
child's hero, not somebody that they didn't know, not some sports figure, not some, whatever, like, who's your hero? And my
Mm,
child, who's 19,
mm-hmm.
will turn around and say, my mom.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. Right?
Oh, that
Think
makes me want
about
to
think
cry.
about Nick
Wow.
being 19. Yeah. That was my biggest motivation was, what is your legacy? And like, you have to ask yourself, and it took me years to come to some kind of decision. Like, it wasn't overnight, but
Mm-hmm.
it was, how do I want to be so that my child will look up to me as this force in his life that really worked her, am I allowed to swear? Worked her
Yes.
ass off. And I feel like I've never really again have settled. I'm gonna
Mm.
tell you, I settled before. And I think that's one of the things to remember when you know. It's just like when to get divorced or when to go to school or when to do whatever. And it's scary. And it's
Yeah.
okay. It's
Yeah.
okay to be scared. Because in today's world, you can make as much money doing an online gig as you can doing whatever. There are safety jumps and there are really go for jumps.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you take a small jump, you'll realize that it works out and then you're ready to take a larger jump.
I like that. It's not
Yeah,
like there's any like
most men.
good. Yeah. It's almost like there's no right way to do it. It sounds like what you're saying is you don't have to like fast jump the way you don't have to hard pivot the way you did. It's more like
Right.
whatever makes you comfortable and start listening to what your heart is trying to say.
I made a list of every single person that I knew and where they were. My friends,
Mm.
you know, people that I knew through volunteering. And I was like, okay, this person is married to so and so. They work at this company. I wonder if they know anybody in HR. And I really went through and thought of all the people I knew and what jobs I had had before. And mind you, I was gone for almost 20 years from this town, but people were still here that
Mm.
remembered me from high school or whatever. And I was like, oh, that person is a lawyer. I wonder
Mm-hmm.
if there's any positions open in legal stuff because I had had my master's in criminal justice. So I was like, maybe I could fit something in there. Not that I knew anything about being a paralegal, but the more connections that you can make in that way, I think is which is why I think volunteering is so important and assists in the pivot, Laura. It does. It assists in that pivot.
I love what you're saying. It sounds like if we were to map out that first pivot, because I honestly think that first pivot is kind of like the hardest and most impactful
Oh,
because
yeah.
it's like, yeah, because you have no idea what you're doing.
No
It
idea.
it sounds like you started with being honest with yourself and listening to that voice that's like, is this it? Like in your heart. And then you thought about, okay, I have a child. What's important to me is I want to have a legacy. So you got clear on like, okay, why you want to pivot. And then you decided, I'm fucking doing this. Like
Yes.
like hell yes, like full ass, like not half ass, full ass. And then from there you were strategic, made a list of people you knew. And it sounded like you weren't hard set on what you were going to pivot to. We know the ending, the what do you call that? The spoiler alert. But most people who are going through this, they're scared. They're like, but what does it look like? So, can you walk us through what that process looked like when you finally narrowed down what exactly you were going to go for?
Sure. So I mean, and I will say that, like, I probably had $300 in my checking account. Like, it wasn't like
Mm,
I had saved all this money and if it didn't work out, I had a month's salary. That was not how it was.
mm-hmm,
It was paycheck to paycheck and just sometimes very scary. But I knew I had to make a little bit more money and I figured out how much money I really wanted to make. And I was like, well, if I make a jump, I
mm-hmm.
need to make X amount of money. You never want to make less, even though you want
Yeah.
to follow your heart, unless you can, right?
Yeah.
But I think the difference in salary was like $15,000. And I thought, you know what, that might be worth it.
Mm-hmm.
And I had all these people that I was reaching out to once I had decided to make that jump. If you are miserable at your job, but yet you choose to stay because you think you can't leave,
Mm-hmm.
that is not a good thing. And you will find people that will respect you and be your person. Like, Laura, you've known me a long time. I'm not quiet.
No.
I am loud and I like to have fun and I like to do whatever. I had to find places that were willing to take on this larger than life personality at
Mm-hmm.
times, because I have worked with people that did not appreciate laughter and did not appreciate things like that. So during the pivot,
Mm-hmm.
I would go on these job interviews and it would be like quiet and nobody would be talking. And they would be really serious. And I would say, is this show? Like, is your office really like this all the time? And I would ask their admin,
Uh-huh.
what is it like to work here? Because I figured she's the one that probably gets shit on the most, right? Like, that's all I could think
Mm-hmm.
of. Because in that front desk situation, people totally don't treat you with respect a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would ask and say, is this a fun office to work in? So during the pivot, like, I knew that is what I didn't want to work. And I will tell you, the congressman who is still my friend, who I still talk to today, will tell you that he just ended up, I mean, it's no secret, but he just ended up becoming a federal judge. And I sent him a text that said, hey, when you hire a director of fun, I want to be, I said, your judges are too stuffy. You need to hire a director of fun. And of course, he's like, we absolutely need a director of fun. Everything
Mm-hmm.
is stuffy. But if that's who you are and you like that predictability and you like to, go to the office and do work, you don't want to work in an office where people are going to interrupt you all the time
Mm-hmm.
either. So it works both ways. But when you're able to be in the safe zone and look for the pivot, I think that's what you need to look for, is something that fits you and how they are.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked a lot of questions they probably didn't like, but you have a lot of time when you are sitting there waiting for that person that's really going to interview you to ask questions of the people that actually work there.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, these pivot questions are very important, because if you pivot and you have done the homework, you can't really make a bad decision. And even if you do, there's another pivot down the road.
Mm-hmm.
But in that first pivot, you learn and you hone in on some of the things to look for the next time. But I think that was kind of my path. You're right. I guess I didn't jump right in. It was definitely a calculated situation, but you shouldn't be afraid to calculate. That's the other thing that I think men do very well
Mm-hmm.
that women do not, is that our value is by how other people treat us. Our internal value should be, we should walk into those things thinking, I am their best candidate. And if their personality doesn't fit mine, guess what? I'm saying no. I don't care if they say no.
Yeah.
This just isn't mine. So
That's so
interesting.
good. No, that's so good. Because to your point, like I find a lot of women, because I work with clients now, right? Like I coach them. Like
Yeah.
it's a lot of people pleasing underneath it all. And with people pleasing, when you're doing that, you're automatically erasing your own needs, or at least suppressing your own needs. Sounds like for you, you were like, no, if I'm going to do this shit, I'm going to be
Yeah.
very clear about what my needs are.
Right. Because at the end of the day, and I feel this way, like, I managed a house with a child, with a job. I think that we downplay a lot of what we do every day. And they tell you all kinds of things in interviews, like, don't do this, don't do that. Like, I broke every rule. They can read my resume.
Yeah.
So, like, let me tell you things about myself and let me ask you some questions.
Mm-hmm.
And while you think that
Ooh,
they should be the ones in control of the interview, that is not true. They're competing for you as much as you're competing for them.
that's right. It's a two-way street. In a way, you're interviewing them too.
Oh, yeah. Getting a job and being happy. I think the next generation got that right.
I think
I
so.
think my generation didn't get that right. We were like, oh, we got to go for the money. We got to go for
Yeah.
whatever. We
Ability.
want to be angels because we're going to fit right into this mold.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that in generations since me, I've seen a lot of, we're not going to take this and we're not going to do whatever. And especially, women in the field, I think whatever field you're in, I think that we take less shit.
That's a good point too, because, when I was first thinking about like this podcast and like my personal clientele in my business, I was aiming it towards basically like our generation up, because that's kind of the thing where you're scared to make the pivot because you've been in it for 20 years. But actually, your advice is still good, even if this is your first pivot and you're only 5 years into the job or only 3 years into the job, because it's really more about being tuned into your heart and being set with like what you actually want and then just going for it. Because truthfully, no matter how many years of experience you have, a pivot is still scary because you still don't know exactly where you're.
Still scary. I still struggle with the pivots, but I think that I have faith and I'm pretty strategic at things and I kind of know, and I never really leave a job before I really have another one. And it's funny because people that are older than I am will say, I'm 50, by the way.
You look like you're 25.
50 this year. So people that are older than I look at my resume and they say, oh, you've had a lot of jobs. You're not showing that you're loyal.
They will.
Come on.
Different
That is
set of
not
values.
the world we live in anymore.
Yeah, not anymore. You know what I'm hearing is like, basically, this is not pun intended, but maybe kind of a little bit. It sounds like overall, it's faith plus strategy.
Yeah. Faith plus strategy. And I think that when you career pivot, I think both of those things happen. Well, let's face it, you do it in every aspect of your life. Your partner, you have to think strategically. You have to have faith in yourself and your decision making and in how to kind of move that along. I would hate to see people not pivot for fear that they will not live up to the expectation of where that crushes me when I hear people say that. They won't hire me. I'm not good enough. They need someone else.
What do you say to them?
That is an attitude change. I would say that it is a big, big world out there. And if you are content with what you do, then God love you. Stay content. Don't pivot. But if you have that drive to even think about it, that means you can do it. Especially if, those people that have raised their kids and have stayed home and they're afraid to go back into the workforce. I see a lot of those people now because those people are now my age, right? Their child goes to college and then now they want to start and they're like, but I don't know how to do anything. I'm like, yeah, you do, because you handled a household and you handled calling the school and you got places on time. You should not be afraid to pivot. If you have that seed that you want to do something else, I think that we so often go to college and we think that we have to be in that box of whatever we did. I just don't buy it. You just don't have to do that. Your skills, just because you went to college, are huge.
That's true. And you know what I'm hearing is you may have had pivots into careers that are maybe slightly the same or even drastically different, but it sounds like throughout it all, you were clear why you were doing it. So like maybe on the outside from the job perspective, it looked different, but on the inside, it sounds like you were driven by leaving a legacy and being a game changer.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. I went back and I looked at 2020 when I won the Woman of Distinction Award, and it was COVID. So they had a video me. And they did this short video of me. And I thought, wow, even in 5 years, how different of a person and how differently I would answer those questions, just 5 years and the difference that 5 years has made. And I look back, I'm like, 5 years ago, I was making $38,000, maybe it was 7. But anyway, 7 years ago, I was making $30,000. Trying to figure out how to balance everything. And then you take a job as a chief of staff and you end up being $130,000 and you make that step just in a few years. And you think, if I didn't take the chance to pivot, I would not be where I am today. I would still be in that job, every day, going home, doing whatever. And that would have been fine. But how much more fulfilling my life has been. because I didn't do that on all levels.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I love that. I want to go back to when you said earlier about how you used to see your pivots as failures and now you don't see it. So maybe you could give us an example of what you thought was a failure and also what caused your perspective shift to not see it as a failure anymore.
So I love to tell this story because some people had very similar experiences. And when I talk about some of them, they come back and say, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that other people had that same experience. So I was raised by a reading teacher.
Mm-hmm.
I was taught to sight read. So I really didn't know a lot of like my phonics skills, but I could read at a really high level. Well, the way that academics go, they need you to know your phonics skills, especially in New
Mm-hmm.
York State. And so when I was in fourth grade, they sent me out of the class to go to this reading class. And I thought I was gifted because I could read at a high level. And I was smart enough that I knew what the word remedial on a pink folder in the middle of the classroom meant.
Mm-hmm.
And so did every other kid in that classroom. So from that moment, I was the dumb kid. I was a
Oh.
remedial kid. And I look back on that moment, and that was it for me. I didn't work hard. I considered myself a failure. And I think that we label children in that way. And many of us that are adults have been labeled in that way in the past. And I think that sometimes is what makes us scared to pivot. And if you play in
Oh.
to the things that people say about you, I think that plays a role. I was failing everything. And if I didn't have a certain teacher in the ninth grade that said, you can do this, God only knows where I would be right now. And I think that as far as the pivots go and as far as the failures go, many people that have failed at a young age don't try again.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was going to be a nursing major. Well, guess what? I failed chemistry. Don't become a nurse if you failed the first chemistry class you ever took, right? And I think it went through until I was, in a position where I thought I might not be the reason why I'm failing. It might be the label
Ooh.
that people put on me or the label that I've put on myself
Mm-hmm.
because I did not think I was smart, because I was told I was not smart.
Mm-hmm.
I go back to the pink freaking remedial folder, but I always say, if it wasn't for that, I probably would have gone through my life and been like, oh, pretty mediocre, right? Because I've never battled that image
Ah.
of failure. If we really stop and think about it, these little failures are not failures because you learn something. You only fail if you don't
Mm.
learn, right? And
Yeah.
so I learned that it was very difficult to work. My personality is not a good match for some women. I learned it,
Not me. We were great.
like we were great. But like there are some women that are threatened by people that are like us, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
that are friendly and can get shit done.
Yeah.
They think that they have to like be in the office and be stern. And that's just not our personality. And they resent the fact that people gravitate towards us
Yeah.
because we have a good personality and they want to be around us. And they don't want to be around this person. But the only reason that person is because they think they have to. I got fired by a
Mm.
woman who thought that I don't even know what she thought, but it was just awkward. And the minute I took the job, I thought, oh God, this is terrible. And I knew I had to get out. So it's just, but strategically got it. Right.
Yeah.
And I literally said to her, listen, we don't see eye to eye. I'm going to need some time, but I'm going to go. Most people be like, man, that woman is going to fire you. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's not good. And of course it's not, but is it really a failure because you know that you need to be somewhere else? So I think that if you go into work every morning thinking, I don't want to drive there, like I can't tell you
Yeah.
the last time I went into the office when I thought, oh God, I don't want to be here. I don't know when that happened.
So I find it interesting that you've never had the sensation of like driving into work being like, ugh, I can't. And I think that's amazing. But if you're listening and you're like, oh shit, what's wrong with me? I just want to say that I have definitely felt that. And it was actually one of the indications for me that it was time to start
Right.
looking into a
Time
pivot.
to go.
It's
Time to go.
Yeah.
Time to pivot.
Yeah. Gots to go.
Absolutely. 100%.
So what I got from what you were talking about failure, by the way, I've never thought about it this before, but it sounds like if you are afraid of failing or you see yourself as a failure, it's almost like kind of do some self-reflection and see if that's a label that was put on you, like maybe as a kid, or if it's a label that's put on yourself, and then just decide not to accept it. That's what I got.
Right.
And also, I love your shift of like, it's not failing if you're trying. If you failed, quote unquote, a reframe would be like, no, it was actually just a learning opportunity.
Well, and it's meant to be, right? Like, I think that sometimes there are things that are out of our control. And I think that maybe there's a reason why you did. Maybe it's teaching you a lesson, no matter what age you are. Like, I know a lot of people that have said, I say it now, where I'm like, gosh, I'm in the retirement system. I really can't leave. Well, then find a job in the retirement system that you might like better. There is a lot of things that you can do differently.
I love it. Okay. So, Faith, your story has been so inspiring for me. And I bet a bunch of our audience is going to be like, oh my God, that Faith person, I want to be friends with her. So, if people want to get a hold of you, how would they go about doing that?
There's kind of a bunch of different ways, but Binghamton University Government Relations, I'm on the website and my email's there, and it's a pretty easy way to get in touch with me. If you live in the local area, there's a lot of volunteer things that I attend. So that's another way.
If someone listening to this is in the Binghamton community and they're like, oh, yeah, I would like to get involved in the community and volunteering, what would you recommend for them to do?
It's really interesting. So I think everywhere that you live has a united way of volunteer. And I always recommend starting out in a really not committal way. Not
I
that you
agree.
or I did that.
No,
but
we definitely went all in. But that's why we got along.
That's part of our charm.
Yes.
But I think, like they do have, we call them done in a days. I mean, you and I do. But in the real world, I think they call them one-offs, and like get to know the organization. Like if you like animals, then find out if you can volunteer for an event that they're having and then see if you really like that organization. I hate it when people, that's a strong word. I don't hate it. But I think that when people join boards and they get overwhelmed because they don't know what the organization is like. Yeah. I mean, you and I have both been in that situation where we're like, whoa, we don't know. So I think that another pivot and learning point.
We're like, we don't recommend doing it this way. Yeah. We'd probably do it again. We'll recommend.
But again, use that to get to know people in your community that could possibly give you a job later on if you decide that you want to pivot. It really works that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. I have one final question that I'm going to ask all the guests. If you
no,
it's a fun one. If you were something to be ordered at a cafe, so like, for example, like a drink or something, or I don't know, pastry, whatever, what would you be and why?
Oh boy. I think that I would probably be, I know, like I'm going to quote Brad Paisley right now, but I think that I would be a hurricane drink. And
what's a hurricane drink? Wait,
yeah, because he has that song that she's like a hurricane. Yeah, like I think that I'm a hurricane because it's the calm mixed with the crazy. Like that's what it is.
That's so accurate.
My son used to say it's like sunshine mixed with a little hurricane. Like that's who I am. And it's so accurate. You too. We like to have fun. We like to do whatever, but like, whew. And some of getting things done is a little bit like a hurricane. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Both of us are kind of like, there's a hurricane there. We should go there.
We should stir it.
We should stir it.
And then once everything is calm, we'll be there to clean it all up.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things that is great about different people's personalities is that you have to have a calm to the hurricane too, and pay attention to your own personality and try to be around people that don't have your same personality because they will fill voids that you can't. there are things that I can't do. I get overwhelmed with some things because that's just not part of what I like to do. And so I try to surround myself with people that are way better at that kind of stuff than I am.
Yeah.
Like schedules.
Like,
Schedules and organizing and things like that. That's okay.
yeah. Yeah. And that starts with being honest with who you are and what you bring to the table and what you don't.
I think so.
Yeah. All right,
So
Faith,
true.
this was so good. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
This was so fun. Big thanks again to Faith Vavra for sharing her story so openly. These conversations are such a reminder that no pivot is too messy, too late, or too unconventional. If something she said resonated, don't keep it to yourself. Share this episode with someone you know who needs it. And when you're ready to start your own pivot, head to www.leadintact.com for free resources or book a free 20-minute call with me. I'm here for you.